I think I learned more about God and His character from my son Mark than from any other single thing in my life. God called us to go to Africa, and we enjoyed very much the ministry that God was giving us. But then Mark, who was 4 years old at the time, started having seizures. And one of the ways he had seizures is he would just start walking like a zombie, almost like he was sleepwalking, and it was very scary. We did not know what was happening. But after doing some tests in Nairobi, it was determined Mark had a large mass in the right frontal part of his brain. And so he was flown back to Loma Linda University, and they determined that this mass was growing very quickly, that by now was the size of a tennis ball in his brain. And they were going to go in and do a craniotomy. A craniotomy is when they remove your skull, a portion of your skull, and I was shocked, I was overwhelmed. And so after I signed the surgical release for the surgeon to do a craniotomy on Mark, I went out onto the porch by myself at the hospital, and I put out a fleece. Now let me tell you what a fleece is. In the Old Testament, God called Gideon to do something for him, and Gideon was very doubtful. And so he said to God, look, if you want me to do this, I'm going to put a sheepskin on the threshing floor here. And if you want me to do this, have all the things around the floor be wet and have the sheepskin be dry. And the next morning, that's how it was. And then he said, now God, please don't be mad at me, but I want to just make sure this is what you want me to do. So let's reverse it the next time. Tomorrow morning, I want the sheepskin to be wet, and I want everything else to be dry. And the next morning it says he wrung out a whole bunch of water from the sheepskin. And so that's called putting out a fleece, understanding what God wants you to do by asking him to do something specific. So that's what I did with Mark. I said, God, there's no way I'm going to take my son back to Africa with a flap of skin over his brain as a result of the craniotomy, because it takes a year before they can put in a plastic insert and just a football helmet over his head to protect him. I said, if you want us to go back to Africa, you have to change things. And I had already signed the release to do the craniotomy. And God did change things. I went back inside, and about then we got a call from the operating room that they never did the craniotomy. And he changed the procedure from a craniotomy to just drilling a small hole about the size of a pencil, and it was successful. And so God called us to go to Africa, and he reaffirmed that call at Loma Linda Hospital. I've read things that, Christians are not supposed to put out fleece, you're not supposed to test God, but all I did was say to God, God, if you want us to do this, then this is what you need to do. So I would encourage you, if you come to a difficult time in your life when you don't know what to do, ask God specifically to show you what to do. Ask God to open a door or to close a door. And in my life, God has been faithful to do that.